Great. Well, we are about out of time. We have just a few more minutes left, and this last question is actually a nice question to end with, and was going to be something that I asked panelists to kind of remark to, which is the question that came in is, I want to begin to implement career pathways. What are some of the first steps I should start with? And what I was going to ask panelists to end with, which is something folks can take home with them and kind of maybe begin to tackle right away, some tips. So I'm actually going to ask all three of you, including you, John, to just speak to this a little bit. You know, for someone starting out, we've had lots of folks in the room and across the country listening to this, and you all are both well underway, but what are some of the first steps or a piece of advice or a takeaway that you would leave the audience with? So we'll start with you, Brian.
Okay. I think I would say for state directors, and looking at a state level, is to think about career pathways and prisons as starting with reception. You know, we'd like to talk about career pathways, that it starts the day the student gets there through the door. And in the case of corrections, that means when they are at the RDCs and they're being processed into the system. And really thinking about how can you start to identify what possible skills and training that offender will need. And so a really good needs assessment of the offender at that point is valuable. And then being able to develop programs that at all the various possible sites that they could go to, that they would be able to actually access. I know that's very difficult to do because it takes a lot of money and you have to figure out ways to do it, but I think there are some ways to do it low cost with technology. But I think it's important to think of it from there. At a local level, I think starting with one possible career or sector is really important, so that you can pick the really low-hanging fruit, finding the faculty members who are really interested in getting involved in it, who want to change things up, who want to have employers involved. I think that's a key part. And then I think when it comes to wanting to bring in technology into the classroom to be able to make that happen, not being afraid to ask security and explain how you're going to do it, and actually approach it with a real sense of abundance. It's really possible to do a lot of innovative things in technology in prison classrooms. You have to think it through, you have to plan, and you have to be safe, but it's possible.
Great.
So.
Renee.
I think in the jail setting, I think it's key that we find those partners. So one of the planning tools, I'm going to go back to the points of entry demonstration project that we received when we went to our first training in Washington, was a template that asked us to look at what were our existing resources and what were our desires or our needs or new resources that we needed, and then what are the outcomes that we were looking for. And that was an amazing planning tool. And so I think that being able to work with your partners, figure out who your partners are, and be able to utilize that tool to be able to plan and really think about implementation in a really meaningful way is so essential. But then also to realize that everybody, especially our ex-offenders, have such an individualized path to success that we still need to be extremely flexible in how we approach reentry and career pathways with our students.
And I'd just like to add that I think that in terms of starting career pathways, I doubt if anybody in correctional education hasn't already started career pathways. It's really the challenge of, again, being at conferences over the years and hearing good practices in correctional education. These are the elements of career pathways. So I think this is really a conceptual model and a communications model, really challenges us to think more broadly and in a more connected way about the services that are required that must be meshed together to really fully support the potential success of our students. So it really gives us an opportunity to reach across disciplines, the academic with the occupational, post-secondary with the lower level of academic, working with employers, working with work opportunities within institutions, to really try to step it up to another level to make our programs more effective by incorporating more of those essential elements to really bolster the opportunities for success of our students.
Great. Great, thank you. Thank you to all of our panelists today and for all of our audience members as well. This formally concludes the webcast on adult career pathways in corrections, education, and reentry programs. I do want to invite you all to continue this conversation in the ACP community. On our website, which is acp-sc.org, there are a tremendous amount of resources available that have been produced by this project, and a lot of them have a focus on corrections and on reentry. So I do encourage you to go there. In addition, we will be archiving this webcast, putting it up, and asking people to continue the conversation in an online community where you can continue to share resources and share thoughts and ask questions that you may have about career pathways in this particular context. Thank you, Brian and Renee and John, for taking time out of your very busy schedules to provide your thoughts and your unique perspectives. I think it's been a very exciting conversation, lots of information and good tips shared with folks. I'd also like to thank the Correctional Education Association for providing us the venue to host this live webcast today, and also, most importantly, our funder for this project, the Department of Education and the Office of Vocational Adult Education, who have invested a tremendous amount of financial resources into making products and tools and resources from across the country available to individuals hoping to implement or continuing to implement and deepen and strengthen their services for learners in career pathways. With that being said, I appreciate your time today, and thanks very much for participating in this session.